Howdy folks. Before we get going in this Indiana Jones and the Great Circle preview, just a quick disclaimer. All the gameplay you see was provided by the publisher, so I was not able to use any of my own gameplay from this preview experience. That said, we're going to do our best to match what they provided to us based on my experience. Alright, without further ado.
This is a museum! Careful!
Trailers for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle have nailed the tone of the franchise. The triumphant John Williams theme song, Harrison Ford's sly smirk, all accompanied with a crack of the whip and the distant howl of a Wilhelm scream. These are stylistic staples in the 43-year-old franchise that has had 5 films, a handful of games, and a TV show. There's no doubt that developer MachineGames understands the look and feel of Indy, but questions have lingered around its ability to capture playing as the globetrotter. Now that I've had some hands-on time with the game, it's clear to me MachineGames understands more than just the aesthetic of Indiana Jones, but also what it means to be Indiana Jones.
That little guy packed a punch.
The result is a promising prospect not just for Indiana Jones fans, but for those of the adventure genre as well. Taking place between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade, The Great Circle sees the titular character a year removed from his globe-trotting adventures, having been teaching archaeology at the fictional Marshall College in the interim. At the beginning of my hands-on time, I wasn't thrust instantly into a big action set piece, but instead I got to walk around as Dr. Henry Walton Jones Jr., the professor, rather than Indiana Jones, the adventurer. This is an important distinction, as it presented a more relatable tone with the character and a steady sense of pacing that allowed me to take in its environments rather than run through them. Characteristics I was happy to see present for the entirety of my 90 minutes of hands-on time, all the way from Marshall College to the mini sandbox of Giza. Dr. Jones's time off from adventuring is put to an end, however, when he comes face to face with a towering intruder portrayed by the menacing presence of Tony Todd, who steals an artifact from the college's gallery and beats the crap out of Jones.
You asked for it.
With an artifact gone and its mystery thief on the run, Professor Jones hangs up the tweed sports coat in exchange for his cool brown leather jacket and fedora. Before heading across the world on a new adventure, I was allowed to spend more time in the college, where I was able to explore a side of Indy, or Dr. Jones, the professor, rather, that I had only seen glimpses of in the films. I was left to clean up the thief's mess, picking up artifacts and placing them back in their rightful cases based on historical cues like hieroglyphics, playing like an environmental riddle and laying the seeds for the importance of observation for the puzzles to come. The game's first-person perspective made looking at the artifacts in Indy's hands feel more tangible and immersive. Even inspecting Indy's notebook, which you will do often, feels seamless as he opens it in front of you without pausing the game, so you can look at maps and notes in real time without covering your viewpoint, allowing you to still observe and walk around the environment. It was during this time as Dr. Jones that the game reinforced this sort of Clark Kent Superman-like theme, that Dr. Jones is a mere alter ego to the larger-than-life adventurer Indiana Jones. It's a motif that came up later in the preview when an old friend of Indy's didn't recognize him without his glasses, tweed suit, and bow tie. It feels intentional, especially in a particular scene when Indy puts on his hat, accompanied with the swelling notes of a John Williams-like score. The scene had the same effect as Christopher Reeves as Clark Kent, taking off his glasses and standing up straight to reveal he is Superman, which also, by the way, features a John Williams score. It's a simple trick, maybe even a little corny, but was effective enough to put a smile on my face. It's moments like this that, while small, capture the character's whimsy spirit better than even some of its own films do at times. Impressively, whether it's playing as the college professor or the scrappy world explorer, the same spirit seems to be infused through every element of gameplay, especially in combat. Despite those Superman comparisons, Indiana Jones is not indestructible, and I learned quickly that taking on enemies face-to-face or fist-to-fist was barely the best course of action. On one hand, clobbering guys with punches feels appropriately cumbersome. There's a weightiness to it that can feel satisfying when blocking an opponent's punch, which can then be followed up with an equally rewarding, well-executed right hook to the face that leaves their face more and more swollen with each blow.
Weren't there more of you?
On the other hand, however, combat felt claustrophobic due to the first-person perspective, which led to rather clumsy brawls that can quickly become chaotic when taking on more than one enemy. Now, my feelings could change after the full release when I can play at my own pace rather than feeling the pressure of a preview event where my time with the game is limited. For now, I think it is less a criticism and more of an indication that there is a learning curve in understanding my limits as Indiana Jones, which in turn encouraged me to just be more creative in how I approached combat. Thankfully, there's a lot of player expression in how you can approach a fight, or how you can avoid them entirely thanks to the game's excellent stealth system. After learning I wasn't the best at hand-to-hand combat, I fell into a rhythm of fighting items around me, whether it was a shovel, an empty bottle, or a guitar, and using those to wail on those damn Nazis. I also found this fighting method to be genuinely funny, as I often used my whip to knock a weapon out of an enemy's hand only to snag it up myself and beat them to a pulp with it. It just didn't get old. As Indiana Jones, you also have a pistol, but to my surprise, I was extremely reluctant to use it. When I had to shoot my way out of a situation, it felt as though I was admitting I had run out of ideas. A feeling I had never felt in MachineGames' other Nazi-killing game, Wolfenstein. This is one of the strongest examples of how MachineGames has honed in on the spirit of being Indiana Jones. Sure, Indy has shot and killed his share of people in the films, but it's always secondary to his improvisational fighting antics, and this is exemplified by the game's design rather than ever explicitly telling me how to play, or by overloading me with ammunition. From the tight halls of the Vatican to the open areas of Giza, the game presented me multiple solutions to every combat encounter, whether it was a clean break to escape, a frying pan in arm's reach, finding a disguise, or just an old-fashioned brawl. Pulling out a gun was the equivalent of descending into panic, and using it only brought more unwanted attention to me. To my surprise, shooting a Nazi in the face didn't feel nearly as rewarding as yanking a bad guy's feet from under him and watching him get knocked out cold from smashing his face into a chair. This reliance on guns is further de-emphasized by allowing each gun to also be used as a melee weapon. With the amount of variety I was given to tackle any given situation, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle has more in common with the immersive sim genre than I expected. MachineGames worked in collaboration with sister studio Arcane for Wolfenstein Youngblood, which featured a more open-ended approach to design than previous Wolfenstein games. And there seems to be a knock-on effect present in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle as a result. Sneaking around the Vatican, scouting alternate routes, and taking out enemies in my own unique way gave my Dishonored itch a well-needed scratch. The Great Circle takes an approach to level-based worlds that is similar to Dishonored. Open areas are filled with side missions and secrets to explore which the player can return to at any time and are non-linear in their design. One of the more open-ended areas I got to explore was Giza, a vast open desert with pyramids to explore, Nazi camps to sneak around, and shabby markets to purchase items from. While Giza was completely open for me to roam around, I was only able to see about a fourth of it due to time constraints, so I barely scratched the surface of what it had to offer. It was in this area that I also got the most out of the game's other two major tools, the camera and the notebook. Due to this section's non-linearity, the notebook was vital in keeping track of fieldworks, or side missions, as well as collecting pictures I had taken, which provide context regarding points of interest and characters you meet along the way. Filling out Indy's notebook gave me a sense of agency akin to Alan Wake 2's evidence board. By taking pictures myself, I had an active role in digesting the game's information, and in turn, feeling more involved in the story and objectives. This was a feature I loved in Alan Wake 2, as it made me a participant in organizing evidence rather than an in-game notebook automatically populating itself. In Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, I had a similar feeling. Every time I took a picture of a point of interest, my natural reaction was to open my notebook and observe the photo and its information, making it more like a companion than a checklist tracker.
These were artisans, masters of their craft.
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle feels like an amalgam of many genres, but appears to be striking the right balance between them, all in favor of honoring the spirit of Indiana Jones, the archaeology professor, and the adventurer. While 90 minutes was not enough time to get the full scope of everything the game has to offer, It gave me a taste of a kind of adventure puzzle game seldom seen in the AAA space, and it is one that's shaping up to be an impressive display of MachineGames' toolset and understanding of molding game design around its protagonist and story. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is expected to release for Xbox Series X and S and PC on December 9th. Of course, for more coverage of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, including its review, stay here at GameSpot.